screaming that only occurs when absolute entitlement crashes headfirst into a magnetic locking mechanism. It's the sound of a predator realizing they have just become the prey. I sat on my back porch, holding a steaming mug of black coffee, listening to that beautiful sound coming from inside my backyard workshop. Inside that shed, currently illuminated by the strobing red light of a silent alarm, was Linda, the HOA president who had made the last 8 months of my life a living hell. She wasn't inspecting for violations anymore. She was the violation, and she wasn't getting out until the sheriff arrived. But to understand why I didn't just unlock the door and let her go, you have to understand the war she started. This wasn't just about a shed. This was about property rights, privacy, and the sweetest revenge ever served cold. This was about property rights, privacy, and the sweetest revenge ever served cold. We cover the best true stories of homeowner justice on this channel, so make sure to subscribe if you want to learn how to fight back. It started 3 weeks after I closed on the house. It was a mid-sized property at the end of a cul-de-sac, chosen specifically because the lot was large enough for my detached workshop. I'm a luthier. I build custom acoustic guitars. I need climate control, security for expensive tone woods, and absolute peace. What I didn't know was that I had moved into the personal kingdom of Linda, a woman who treated the Homeowners Association covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the CC and RS, like they were commandments carved in stone, and she was the only one who could read them. The first strike was a courtesy notice taped to my front door. Not mailed. Taped. It claimed my trash bins were visible from the street at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. According to Linda's interpretation of Article 4, Section 2, bins must be retracted within 30 minutes of the sanitation truck's departure. I work from home, so I checked my security doorbell. The truck had left at 5:45 p.m. She had been patrolling the street with a stopwatch. I ignored it. That was my first mistake. Bullies like Linda interpret silence as submission. 2 days later, I was in the driveway unloading a shipment of mahogany when a golf cart whirred up behind me. Linda didn't introduce herself. She just pointed a manicured finger at my workshop. That structure, she said, her voice nasally and sharp, is not in compliance with the architectural aesthetic of the community. The trim color is alabaster. The approved shade is antique white. You have 14 days to repaint it, or fines will accrue at $50 a day. I looked at the shed. I looked at my house. They were identical. The builder had painted both. I told her this. The builder makes mistakes, she smirked. The HOA corrects them. I'll be back to inspect the interior as well, to ensure you aren't running a commercial business. Commercial activity is strictly prohibited. That was the trigger. Inspect the interior? I asked. You don't have the right to enter my private outbuilding. She adjusted her sunglasses, staring me down. Article 9, Section C. The board reserves the right to inspect exterior lots and auxiliary structures for compliance. I'll be back, and you will open that door. She drove off, leaving me fuming. I went inside and immediately pulled the deed and the HOA bylaws. I spent the next 3 nights poring over legal jargon until my eyes bled. I found Article 9, Section C. It did say they could inspect, but there was a clause she conveniently forgot to mention. It required reasonable notice of at least 48 hours and, more importantly, probable cause of a health or safety violation. A paint color discrepancy was neither. I drafted a formal letter, citing the bylaws, denying her request to enter, and demanding all future communication be in writing. I thought that would back her off. I thought citing the rules to the rule enforcer would garner some respect. I was wrong. The harassment didn't stop. It escalated. The fines started arriving daily. Grass height exceeds 2.5 inches. Unauthorized vehicle and driveway. It was my brother visiting for an hour. Improper window treatments. She was paper bombing me, trying to bleed me dry financially until I either moved or bowed down. But the real turning point was the drone. I was sanding a fretboard in the shop one afternoon when I heard a buzzing noise outside. I looked out the high transom window. Hovering about 10 feet from my shop door, peering right into the glass, was a camera drone. She wasn't just patrolling the street anymore. She was conducting aerial surveillance of my backyard. I grabbed my phone and filmed the drone filming me. I felt a pit in my stomach. This woman wasn't going to stop at fines. She was obsessed with what was inside my shed. She was convinced I was running a factory or housing illegal tenants. She wanted in, and she didn't care about the law. That night, I reviewed my external security footage. At 3 a.m., the motion sensors near the back gate had tripped. The video was grainy, but I saw a figure with a flashlight walking along my fence line, testing the latch. It was locked, but the intent was clear. She was casing the property. She was looking for a way in. I realized then that a lawyer letter wouldn't be enough. If I took her to court now, it would be her word against mine, and the HOA board was stacked with her cronies. I needed undeniable, criminal proof. I needed her to cross the line from annoying neighbor to felony intruder. I looked at my workshop. It was solid, soundproof, and had a single heavy-duty steel door. It was a vault, and that gave me an idea. If she wanted to get inside so badly, maybe I should help her. But I had to make sure that once she got in, she couldn't get out until the world saw who she really was. The difference between a prank and a legal takedown is preparation. If I just locked her in a shed, that's kidnapping. But if a burglar triggers a high-end security containment system while committing a felony trespass, that's justice. I spent the next week turning my workshop into a spiderweb. I called in a favor from an old friend, Miller, who installs commercial security systems for jewelry stores and pharmacies. When I told him about Linda and the drone, he didn't just agree to help. He offered the friends and family discount on military-grade hardware. We installed hidden 4K cameras in every corner of the workshop, equipped with low-light sensors and high-fidelity microphones. We needed to catch not just her image, but her words. I needed a jury to hear her intent. But the piece de resistance was the door. We reinforced the frame and installed a 1,200-pound electromagnetic lock. Miller wired it to a panic lockdown system. The logic was simple. If the perimeter sensors were breached while the system was armed, the maglocks would engage instantly to secure the asset. It was designed to keep thieves out, but with a little tweaking to the motion sensor delay, it would work perfectly to keep a rat in. Before I set the bait, I visited a property attorney, a shark named Mr. Vance. I paid him $300 for 30 minutes of his time to ensure I stayed on the right side of the law. I showed him the drone footage. I showed him the threatening letters. "You need to post signage," Vance told me, leaning over his mahogany desk. Big, ugly, undeniable signage. No trespassing, private property, and specifically, audio and video surveillance in progress. If she walks past 3 warning signs and breaks a lock, she forfeits her expectation of privacy. And if she's trapped, well, she shouldn't have been in a hazardous work zone to begin with. I went home and decorated my fence like a construction site. I put up the signs. I even sent a certified letter to the HOA board, and Linda personally, stating that my workshop contained hazardous chemical compounds and sensitive machinery, and that for safety reasons, absolutely no unauthorized entry was permitted. I was practically handing her a do not touch button. I knew she couldn't resist pushing it. Then came the theater. For 3 days, I put on a show. I bought a dozen large cardboard boxes and labeled them with ominous stickers: flammable, solvent, and fragile. I waited until I saw Linda's curtains twitch, her standard surveillance mode, and then dragged the boxes from my truck into the shed, acting suspicious and hurried. I looked over my shoulder constantly. I wanted her to think I was cooking meth or housing a fugitive. I wanted her curiosity to override her self-preservation. On Friday morning, I initiated the final phase. I loaded a suitcase into my car, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I told the mailman, loud enough for the street to hear, that I was heading out of town for a luthier conference all weekend. I drove away, watched in the rearview mirror as Linda stepped out onto her porch, phone in hand, watching me leave. I didn't go to a conference. I drove 2 miles down the road to a coffee shop parking lot, reclined my seat, and pulled up the live security feed on my tablet. The wait was excruciating. For 4 hours, nothing happened. I drank 3 coffees. I started to worry she wouldn't take the bait. Maybe I had scared her off with the certified letter. Maybe she was smarter than I gave her credit for. Then, at 1:15 p.m., the notification hit my screen: motion detected, Backyard West. I watched the screen, heart hammering against my ribs. Linda marched into the frame. She wasn't wearing her usual floral blouse. She was wearing a windbreaker and gloves. She had a clipboard in one hand and a heavy-duty crowbar in the other. This wasn't an inspection. This was a raid. She bypassed the no trespassing sign without glancing at it. She walked right up to the workshop door. I watched on the external camera as she tried the handle. Locked, obviously. She didn't knock. She didn't call out. She wedged the crowbar into the door jamb. My blood boiled. That was a custom steel door, and she was gouging it. But I held off. Let her commit, I told myself. Let her cross the threshold. With a grunt that the microphone picked up crystal clear, she popped the latch. The door swung open. She stepped inside, triumph written all over her face. She began rifling through the hazardous boxes, ripping the tape off. Got you, she muttered, her voice streaming clearly through my headphones. I knew it. Non-compliant storage. Fire hazard. She was deep inside the room, away from the door. I opened the security app on my tablet. My finger hovered over the button labeled lockdown. Smile, Linda, I whispered. I tapped the screen. The sound of a 1,200-pound electromagnetic lock engaging is a dull, heavy thud, like a bank vault sealing shut. On my tablet screen, I saw Linda jump 3 feet in the air. Simultaneously, the interior strobes activated, disorienting pulses of red light designed to panic an intruder. Linda rushed the door. She slammed her shoulder against it. It didn't budge a millimeter. She rattled the handle. Nothing. She started screaming, that specific pitch I mentioned earlier. I didn't activate the two-way intercom. I didn't taunt her. I wanted her to sit in the silence of her own consequences. I calmly dialed 911. 911. What is your emergency? Yes, I'm watching my home security feed remotely. I have a confirmed break-in at my property. The intruder has forced entry into my detached workshop with a crowbar. My security system has successfully contained them inside. They are armed with a metal weapon. Are you in danger, sir? I'm currently down the street, but I'm heading home now to meet the officers. I drove back slowly. No speeding. I wanted to make sure the deputies arrived before I did. By the time I pulled into my cul-de-sac, 2 sheriff's cruisers were already there, lights flashing. A deputy was standing by the shed door, hand on his holster, listening to the muffled screaming coming from inside. I walked up the driveway, hands visible. I'm the homeowner, I said. The deputy looked at me, then at the shed. Sir, there's a woman in there claiming she's the president. Of the United States? I asked. The deputy cracked a smile. Of the HOA. She says you kidnapped her. Kidnapped? I pulled out my phone and tapped the video file I had already saved. Officer, this is a live recording from 10 minutes ago. You can see her bypassing the no trespassing signs. You can see the crowbar in her hand, and you can see her forcibly prying the deadbolt to gain entry. The door locked automatically behind her. That's a safety feature. The deputy watched the video. His expression shifted from confusion to stern professionalism. He waved his partner over. We've got a B&E possession of burglary tools. They asked me to unlock the door. I tapped the app. The maglocks disengaged with a click. The deputies threw the door open. Linda stumbled out, red-faced, hair wild, still clutching her clipboard but missing the crowbar, which she'd dropped in panic. She immediately pointed a shaking finger at me. Arrest him, she shrieked. He trapped me. This is false imprisonment. I am the HOA president, and I was conducting a mandatory inspection of. Ma'am, turn around and place your hands behind your back. The deputy interrupted, his voice bored. Excuse me. Linda gasped. You broke into a secured structure. We have it on video. You are under arrest for breaking and entering and trespassing. But the bylaws, she sputtered as the cuffs clicked on. Article 9. Bylaws aren't laws, ma'am, the deputy said, guiding her toward the cruiser. And a crowbar isn't a master key. The aftermath was a masterclass in legal destruction. Linda was charged with criminal trespass and criminal mischief for the damage to my door. But the real twist came when my lawyer, Mr. Vance, went after the HOA. Since Linda claimed repeatedly during the arrest, on police body cam footage, that she was acting in her official capacity as board president, the HOA was vicariously liable for her actions. We sued the association for harassment, emotional distress, and the cost of repairs. The board panicked. They didn't want a trial that would expose their lack of oversight. They settled out of court. The payout covered my lawyer fees, the cost of the security system, and enough left over to buy a very nice vintage Gibson I'd been eyeing. As for Linda, part of her plea deal to avoid jail time involved stepping down from the board and a permanent restraining order preventing her from coming within 100 feet of my property. She couldn't even drive past my house to get to the mailboxes without violating it. She put her house on the market 3 months later. The new neighbors are great. They asked me what the shed was for. I invited them inside, showed them the guitars, and offered them a beer. No inspections required. The lesson here is simple. Your home is your castle, but your evidence is your shield. Don't just tell a tyrant no. Let them break the rules, record every second of it, and then let the law do the heavy lifting. If you enjoyed watching a Karen get trapped in her own web of lies, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And let me know in the comments, what's the craziest HOA rule you've ever ignored? Stay free and stay vigilant.